Hi there! In today's video, I'm finally integrating my PHP code interpreter into my ChatGPT clone project. Now, I did say that already in the past two videos, but today we are actually going to do it. So in the previous video, I created this PHP code interpreter, which is basically a reverse engineered version of the ChatGPT CodeInterpreter, or what is now called Advanced Data Analysis. So basically how this works is I can run php interpreter.php and it will open this terminal application, and then I can ask the code interpreter to do something. So for example, right now I have this hurricanes.csv put into this data folder here, and it is this CSV file with some hurricane data from different years and different months. And I can say, make a graph of the yearly hurricanes from hurricanes.csv. And what it will do is it will propose a code for me to run. Now, in fact, I have not tested this particular example, and I think that it actually assumes what is the format of the data in this file. So it doesn't actually read it, check it, which we should probably prompt it in the system prompt to check the file first to know how to read it. Because now it's trying to read it and it is trying to group it by year, but we don't have such thing in here. So let me in fact say, no, I don't want to run this code. And I'll say, please read the CSV file first and check its format. So let's see if it can do it. Okay, now we have another problem here. So it added this data.head in here, which I believe will return something, maybe the header of the CSV. But since we are just running this code, this will not output anything. If you just had data.head on a single line, you should print it first. So this will not work, but let's see what it does. And okay, that was unexpected. It hallucinated the format of the hurricanes.csv. That is very interesting. So let's actually fix this problem. So first of all, let's add into the system message that if it has to read the file first to check the format, then it should do that. So let's say you are an AI assistant that can run Python code in order to answer the user's question. You can access a folder called data from the Python code to read or write files. Write visualizations. I'll say always write visualizations and charts into a file. And I will remove if possible, because sometimes it doesn't write it, even if we ask it to. And then we have this, when creating links to files in the data directory in your response, use the format link text and data/file name, which it also doesn't really conform to every time, but let's add here. When the task requires to process user-provided data from files, always inspect the file content first with Python. And then how can we make it print the last line? I feel like there should be a way to run the code in such a way that it prints the last line, because that's actually what ChatGPT does. So when I asked it to organize some names in alphabetical order, then it actually wrote this code, and in the last line it had sorted names, and then this was the result. But I'm not sure how to get Python to actually print out the last line when I do this. Now I did add in my function definition that it must end with a print statement, but it still doesn't do it every time. So maybe I could just add something like this. Since we are here styling the code, so we loop through every line, then let's take the index of the line, and then we can say that if we are on the last line, so if I equals the row count -1, and let's get the row count. So row count is the count of the code rows, and I do not have Copilot enabled, but somehow it is enabled. Where is Copilot? I don't want to use Copilot right now. I literally don't have Copilot. Where is Copilot? I literally do not have Copilot installed. Why do I have Copilot? Why is VS Code sending all my code to Copilot right now? Fine, we are going to have Copilot for this episode. So if we are on the last line, then if the last line doesn't have a print statement, so if not str contains row print, then we are going to add it there. Now we have to hope that the last statement will be only a single row of code, which might break something. So we are going to say that then the row is going to be print row. And we can actually move this up here so that we actually get it here in the styled code. And I will add a to-do here. To-do, run Python code in such a way that this is not necessary. And then we should be able to run this thing. So let's try again. So I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to say the same thing. Make a graph of the yearly hurricanes from hurricanes.csv. And let's see what it does. Okay, well, we added a print statement, but apparently there's a new line in the response from ChatGPT, so we cannot do that. We have to first trim it. Let's trim the code first. So let's say that the code is trim code. And it did not actually read the file, even though we asked it to do so. So let's in fact create a function for ChatGPT so that it can read the file. So let's say read file contents, and let's create that function for ChatGPT. So let's say function read file contents, and this is going to take the string of the file name and the contents. Wait a minute, what is Copilot? What are you doing? Read file contents takes the file name and the contents. That doesn't make any sense. It will take the file name, and I want to pass in the number of lines we want to read. So let's say lines, and I'm going to set it to null. So if we don't pass it, we read the whole thing, because we might not want to read the whole file, because if it's a large CSV file, then we would read the whole file and then send it back to ChatGPT. So hopefully ChatGPT would know to read just a couple of lines from the CSV to know how it is formatted. So let's do that. If file doesn't exist, then we get an exception. And we don't want to get an exception actually. We want to just return file not found, because this will be the response to ChatGPT. And is readable, is there such a function? Interesting. So we might as well add that. I have never used is readable. And I will say file is not readable. What else do we have to? Then we have to check it again. No, we are not going to check it again. We are going to return file get contents with the file name. And I want to do one more thing actually. I want to say that the contents is that. And if it's empty, I want to return something that tells that it's empty. So if contents is literally empty, maybe I will trim it too. If it's an empty string, then I will return file is empty. And I'm going to get rid of this is readable. And I'm only going to say if the contents is not a string, then we are going to return unable to read file. Now will file get contents actually return an error? It will, or not return, but it will print out an error if it can't read it. So how do we suppress that error? Can we suppress it with that is readable? And in fact, this should be false. So let's do it directly. If contents is false, then it's unable to read it. And fine, let's add if is not readable, then we are going to return unable to read file, or file is not readable, just so we have a different message for all of these cases. So hard to read a file. And then finally we are going to return the contents. But I forgot to implement this lines functionality, and now we're actually loading the whole file into memory. So I'm going to just say file, which will convert the file into an array. And then I'll say array slice, offset 0 and length of the lines. And in fact, length can be null. So I guess if it's null, then we are going to go to the end of the array. Now this is not a good way of reading this. So I'll add a to do, read lines more efficiently, because we are again reading the whole file into an array, but then we just return the lines. But I have enough memory on my computer, so I don't care about that. And what will this return? Array. It will return an array. Okay. Now file will return array of false. So in fact we have to say lines is that, and let's say lines is that, and if lines is false, then we are going to say unable to read file, and then we are going to actually still say this is lines, but I call this lines, so I will say line count, and this is going to be line count, and we don't have to check this again. This is always an array. It must be an array or it throws an error. But here it must be an array because file returns an array or false. And if it's false, then we say unable to read file. And then what is the contents? Well, the contents is going to be implode with a new line, the line. So now we should have a proper function for reading the file content. So let's add some doc block, which will be passed into ChatGPT. So we will say read the contents of a file. And let's add a parameter, string file name, the name of the file to read. And let's add a param, int line count, how many lines to read. And in fact, I have not implemented optionality in my ChatGPT library. So I will say -1 equals all lines. And let's do if line count is -1, then line count is null. So then we're actually going to read the whole thing. So let's do that and see if ChatGPT will now know what to do. Perhaps we will have to say something about running these functions sequentially. But let's try it first. Will it work? So I am going to say again, make a graph of the yearly hurricanes from hurricanes.csv. And it still doesn't work. So it still wants to read the file directly. Although I don't see when it reads the file. So let me add an actual print statement here. So let's do here print reading file name. And let's then run this again and see if it will do it. Make a graph of the yearly hurricane. Okay, it read the file actually. And then it wanted to run this code. Now, what happened here is that probably the JSON that came from ChatGPT was incorrectly formatted. And since last time we added this check to my ChatGPT library, that if the arguments can't be decoded from JSON, we will just set the first argument to the JSON. Because sometimes ChatGPT responds with just the code here. But the problem is that sometimes ChatGPT, especially GPT 3.5, which I'm using right now, answers with invalid JSON. So let's actually see, is this invalid JSON? Although I have my formatting here already, so I have to unformat this formatting. So let me remove these things here and my print. So this is what ChatGPT sent. And yes, there is a trailing comma, but we shouldn't have a trailing comma in JSON. So let's actually check this JSON formatter. And let's pass this in here and process. And it's valid, but there's a trailing comma. This probably doesn't check that. I'm not sure about these RFCs. Actually, we have a fixed JSON here. Let's take out fixed JSON. And now it is invalid. So we have an invalid comma. How can we fix JSON? That would be a nice thing to do. But for now, I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to just try this again and perhaps change to GPT-4. I had the same issue with my GPT Autopilot project because it can't write code properly inside of a JSON value. So let's do it again and see what happens. Okay, did we read anything? We did not read anything. So let's try to change our system message. Or let's in fact first try model GPT-4. Maybe GPT-4 is better. Actually, the actual code interpreter of OpenAI uses GPT-4. You can't even use it with GPT 3.5, so perhaps this is the reason why. So now it actually read the file, and we got an invalid request error. Uncaught exception, error in OpenAI request. Python.code does not match this pattern. Messages for function call .name. So ChatGPT hallucinated a function called python.code. This happens very often. It hallucinates the names of the function. So how do we fix this issue? I in fact have to go to my library and I have to pre-process the ChatGPT response. So after we get the response from ChatGPT, then we are going to say if is set message function call, then we are going to set the function call to preg replace, and the pattern was this. So we are going to remove all of the characters that are not allowed. So if ChatGPT hallucinates a function name that has disallowed characters, so we are going to do that. So everything that is not one of these is going to be removed. And we have to add these slashes here, and those will be replaced with nothing, and then we pass in the function call. Fix function name hallucinations. So now what we can do is we can add another function because now it will remove the dot in that case. Then I'm going to say function Python code will return Python with the code. And this will also have the string code alias for ChatGPT hallucinations. So let's see if that will work. Let's try one more time. And we are going to say the same thing. Make a graph, please. And I forgot that this is in fact not an array. It is a standard class. So we have to do this. Okay. One more time. Make a graph of the hurricanes. And that is also a standard class. What? Sorry. Function call name is going to be that. Let's try one more time. Make a graph. Reading file hurricanes.csv. And then, I'm sorry, but it seems that the file hurricanes is not found in the data directory because it didn't add the data in the beginning. So how do we fix this? We have to tell it that everything is from the data directory. Now, in the final implementation, I will probably do it in such a way that when you upload a file, because you will be then able to upload a file through the interface, it will send a message, I have uploaded a file, and then it will add the path. So perhaps it then will know the correct path. But in this case, I would like to just be able to say the name of the file without the data in the beginning. So perhaps I will just add it here. Let's make a function. So let's do file name is get file name, and let's pass in the file name, and let's create that function, get file name. So what will this do? This will say if the string position in file name of data slash is not 0, then we're going to return data slash file name. So if we don't have data slash in the beginning of the file name, then we will put it there. Otherwise, we just return file name. So let's try this now. And make a graph. Okay, we're reading data slash hurricanes.csv, and we are waiting for ChatGPT. Now, I have to say that ChatGPT API is very unreliable. Very often it gets into this hanging state that nothing happens and then I have to try again. So that's probably what happened here again. So let me in fact try one more time. Now we should add some kind of timeout to it so that it doesn't actually go on forever and then it would actually automatically retry. It can't get the response. But this is taking very long, so I'm not sure if I have an error in my code. Let's do load average. Okay, so maybe I am in some kind of loop. Hopefully I'm not sending ChatGPT requests in that loop. Let's see if that helps anything, if I stop it. Maybe my computer is actually just running on a high load because I am recording the video. Perhaps that is the reason. But wait a minute. We read the file and we pass the contents to ChatGPT, and then it should work. So let me add here echo connecting to ChatGPT, and let me add down here ChatGPT done. And let's try the 500th time. Okay, connecting to ChatGPT. Okay, done. Reading the file, connecting to ChatGPT again, and what is going to happen? It is connecting a very long time. So perhaps the API is just busy right now. Actually, We stopped and then we connected again. Okay, interesting. Why did we do that? Okay, finally we got some code. So probably what happened here is that we read the file and, well actually, okay, that's correct. So we first sent the message to ChatGPT, make a graph. Then it responded with, okay, I want to read the file. Then we sent the file contents to ChatGPT and then it responded with this code. And it put the actual code in a dictionary here, which is not quite what we want because it might hallucinate this information, which it in fact did. So it is not the correct information. Damn it. Or wait a minute, it doesn't include the average. So it is the correct information. I was just looking at the average. So this is correct. 025668831. 025668831. Okay. So it is correct, but I still would like it to actually read it from the file. But let's try. Although something weird happened with our print here. And I'm not quite sure what happened here. Perhaps the JSON was, okay. The JSON was again not properly formatted. So what is the problem with this JSON now? It looks like it is correct, but something is wrong somewhere. Let's copy this thing and let's paste it in here and remove our print statement and remove all of these and remove all of these. So where is the problem here? Let's copy this again to JSON formatter, and it is in fact invalid for some reason. Invalid character at position 37. What is position 37? I'm not sure what that means. Maybe we have to remove these spaces from here. I'm not sure what the problem is here. Can we fix this one as well? It's still invalid, even if we try to fix it. Invalid character at position 37. That's weird. What's wrong with this? If I remove these spaces from here, they shouldn't matter, I don't think. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Can there not be a new line actually here? There can't. These should be converted into... Oh, sorry. They are converted into new lines with my code. Are they? No. That's right. So ChatGPT responded with this, but you can't have multi-line things in JSON. You should convert all the new lines into an actual new line, but of course not here. So this would work. Oh man, how do we fix this issue? I am going to hack something here. I am going to do this. We're going to take the code and we're going to trim it, and then we are going to do if str contains code, then we are going to do this. Code equals explode with code, the code. And we are going to take two pieces. And we are going to say that the code is code 1. And we are going to say that the code is going to be trim code with the ending parentheses. So now we should get only the code part, even if this is a JSON string with the code in there. So let's do this, and again let's add a comment. Fix ChatGPT hallucinations. Okay, it seems like we are not getting into the actual integration in today's video either. But let's try and now make a graph. And we read the file. And then we send the file to Chat. I actually don't know how many lines it is reading. I should probably add that in the print statement. I'll add here line count. And let's see if we get something. Okay, and we actually got some code now. And this is interesting. So it added up all of the hurricanes of the years, because here we have them by month. But I, of course, asked for just per year. So it added these up, but it did it manually. So we just have to hope that this is the correct information. And now our code actually should run properly. Although we have a quotation mark here. So actually it got into our new if statement. So it got here, but I should have added a quote here as well, because it didn't remove the quote from the beginning. So this will of course fail now if we try to run it. So let's try to run it one more time. Okay, I ran it again, and in fact, it starts now properly, but I forgot the ending quote as well. But let's see if we can run this code. It might give an error, but it still should create the actual image. So let's see. It should have run it now, but nothing happened. So maybe it failed. So let's fix that as well. We're going to trim the ending parenthesis. Then we are going to trim what is left, because there might be some white space in the end. And then we are going to trim the quotes, which might break something. So in fact, I'm not going to trim it. I will just remove the last character. So let's do this. Let's trim this part, and then let's say that the code is substring of the code from 0 to code -2. No, -1. And we need to trim this thing as well, because there might or might not be white space. And then we again take out the last quotation mark. And actually we want to trim that as well. So this is remove this from the end, and this is remove this from the end. So let's do this, and I will run it again. Okay, finally we have some code that looks like it is going to be proper. And again we calculated all these yearly hurricanes, and let's run this thing and see what happens. So now I can see that something happened here. So let's see, we have hurricanes by year, and if we open this, then here in fact we have hurricanes by year. So does this look right? So 2005 had 30 hurricanes, and 2013 had like 13 hurricanes. Let's see if that is true. So let's do some of these things. It is 31, and here actually we have 31. Okay, so that's correct. And 2013 should be like 13 or something. So 2013 is this, and the sum of these 14. Okay, now it's hard to tell from this graph what the actual number is, but okay, it could be 14 or 13. So if this is 31, then this is actually 14. So now it actually works. We have made a graph from a CSV. Okay, so now that this 1 hour intro has finished, let's actually integrate this into ChatGPT. But first I will check if this actually will work with GPT 3.5. So I'm going to do it again, make a graph. Now I guess the problem with this was that it didn't read the file. But now it read the file, and it wrote the code, which actually now took the years and the hurricanes. I'm not sure what iLock means. So this is actually what I wanted, if this actually reads the data from the CSV. So let's see if this works. So now we should have yearly hurricanes, which is here, and look at this. It actually did the same thing. So if we open these side by side somehow, how can I open them together? How can I make this keep open? Okay. And let's keep this open as well. So are these the same thing? They are basically the same thing. So actually GPT 3.5 works too. And in fact better, I would say, in this case, because it actually read the data from the CSV and not just typed it in again, because that might cause some issues. But now let's integrate this into ChatGPT. But that is going to be another video, because this video turned out to be just me messing around with this code, and I couldn't get to the actual integration, and this video is already a bit long. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.